Hello and welcome. Would you like some? Where are the? Where are the hors d'oeuvres?
Well, I was.
We put them out. We got everything ready. We got everything ready.
I thought
the spread.
What is it not?
It was all right here.
Huh.
Interesting.
Ian, did you eat all the hors d'oeuvres again?
Did you?
What? No. What's that over there?
He's running after him.
Get him! Get him!
Get him! What a great bit that was. That was really good.
That was great.
I'm sure our listeners loved that.
I know.
Listeners, if you loved that bit, just smash that like and subscribe. Just do it right now. Smash that button for the good bit.
Smash it with your fucking face.
Just right there.
Ow!
Get that fucking nose all up in that subscribe.
Get it in there. Get it in there. It's the only way.
It's the only way. So, friends, with a spread that was so robust and quite tasty, you know it can only be one thing. It's fucking Stream Theory,
What?
baby.
Mm-hmm.
You just stumbled onto another fucking episode of Stream Theory. And welcome to Stream Theory, dear first listeners. I don't know why I'm going to be getting all folksy on you out of nowhere, but I do want you to feel warm and comfy as we go ahead and start dissecting just like what is the best and the rest of our streaming options. I don't know where this is going. I was hoping that maybe you know what? Why don't you all tell people who you are, friends? Who the hell am I talking with?
Well, I'm Ben.
And I'm Matt.
And I'm Cletus.
Okay, what happened to Ian?
Because Ian ran away.
He's gone now.
Narratively, we need to find a way to justify getting Ian back. Otherwise, Cletus is here the whole time.
The whole damn time.
No one, even Cletus. Oh, Cletus don't want that. I'm gonna go get Ian real quick and just. Hey, I'm Ian.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, he's back. Oh, thank God.
Oh, Cletus is okay.
Cletus is dead.
Oh,
we don't have to. Yeah, we won't be hearing from Cletus for a while.
This escalated quickly. Maybe he worked for the White House staff. That's why he's COVID now.
Yep, that's. You know, you fuck around and find out. That's all I'm saying.
And find out.
Oh wow. Yep. And you know what happens when we get these our three very specific brains into a room, dear listener, when we are covering all of our. So when we break it down, when we distill it, we have our own process that's called the good, the bad, and the remake. What does that mean? Well, collectively, we try to source around 6 things that we liked about a specific streaming property, and 6 things, once we move on from the good to the bad, 6 things that we wish were stronger or we felt like weakened the property as a whole. And finally, you know, when Hollywood inevitably recycles this storyline in 5 to 10 years, we have to go ahead and cover the remake, what we would do differently when we are given a chance to inevitably remake this movie, because you all know that that's exactly what's going to happen. Hollywood in 5 to 10 years is just going to be throwing all the remakes at us. Like, you reviewed it so well the first time. Why don't you take this stab at Kissing Booth? No, I refuse already. I preemptively refuse. But at the end of it, we do have to give a rating system, and we could do numbers, we could do stars or whatever. That'd make a lot of sense, but that's no fun. You didn't come here for sense.
That's not us.
This is Stream Theory, baby. No, we have at the top tier a must-watch. Self-explanatory. Get on it. It's important. It's great. It's well conceived and constructed. It's beautiful. Do it. Just below that, you've got it's on the list. What does that mean? It means it's in your queue. It's just behind one of those must-watches that's there, but it is also still really good, despite being like a little flawed. At the middling tier, you have something for the background. It's inoffensive. You can put it on. You can do chores. You can distract your kids. It's something for the background. as we start getting towards the lower variety of the offerings, we start to tread into I would rather territory, which means that we, your hosts, have to come up with something that we would rather do than have to watch said streaming property again. And finally, at the very bottom of the barrel, the absolute dregs, the just hot dumpster fire, you've got the kissing booth. It used to be Artemis Fowl because we thought we were clever and it was spelled foul, but no, it's now the kissing booth because, y'all, just watch it and you'll know. But that's it. That's it, baby. That's a little rundown on what stream theory looks like for you, dear listener. And what are we covering today, friends, as we sit down and talk about stream theory?
All right, dear listeners. Today we are looking at The Lodge. This movie dropped on February 7th of this year. It's directed by Severin Fiala and Veronika Franz. The screenplay is also by Veronika Franz and Severin Fiala, as well as Sergio Caschi. The cinematography is by Tamias Bakatakis, and it is starring Riley Keough, Jaeden Martell, Lia McHugh, and Richard Armitage. And the story goes like this. A soon-to-be stepmom is snowed in with her fiancé's 2 children at a remote holiday village. Just as relations begin to thaw between the trio, some strange and frightening events take place.
Ooh, a spooky season's kicking off.
That really doesn't tell you almost anything.
No.
That is a poor description of the plot of this movie. I think. While technically correct, it also lacks any sort of flavor or detail whatsoever. Mm-hmm. Good job, IMDb. I hope you're right.
Good job.
Hey, those interns, man, they're like, I don't know, fam. She's in a fucking cabin. There's some kids in snow.
Yeah. Oh, God. All right. So good.
Breaking this puppy down.
Yeah, good, bad, reboot. I will start with the good if you guys are fine with that.
Yeah, take
Let's
it away,
do
man.
it. What you got for us?
Good. The cinematography works well. It's an exceptional tool of conveying that uneasiness from the very beginning to the end. Some really cool things going on here. Some really nice tight shots, which always make for interesting horror elements. I always like a tight lens to kind of give you that sense of suffocation, or just that sense of something's closing in on you. Or sometimes the camera can be used as if something is looking at you, or something is like constantly watching. This necessarily doesn't do that, but I was just giving you an example. But this does do a good job of establishing the atmosphere and the environment, what we're getting into, some beautiful picturesque shots in here. Every shot has levels. There's always something filling the space. There's never any empty space, which also, I mean, any competent filmmaker will tell you that, yeah, okay, that's what it's supposed to happen. But sometimes you'll watch a movie and you're like, what's going on over there? Why is that so empty? And why are they doing that?
Prime example definitely being whatever. What was the one Josh Duhamel?
Oh yeah. The Lost Husband.
The Lost Husband. The Lost Husband is a fucking criminally guilty of that.
Yeah, absolutely. You're just like, here, just gonna set this up on some sticks and gonna do wide, medium, and a close up, and we're gonna go to the next shot. No, you can tell that they definitely, the storyboard on this, they took their time to really piece together a competent, not only competent, but a story where the themes shine through, and you immediately know what you're getting into for the first shot. Immediately, bang, you're there. And they do a good job of that. So the cinematography, I think it's a very good, a positive, a plus, definitely a pro on my part, and on the filmmaker's part. I love it.
I totally agree with that. I also think they use the camera very artfully in terms of creating senses of scale, where sometimes I remember the opening shots are kind of disorienting, and then after a moment you realize that you're looking inside of a child's dollhouse, and it's like so weird to have that, because you're like, there's something off about this space. What the fuck is going on? You don't recognize it until you see the shot of the dollhouse itself, and you're like, oh, okay. And they use that as a sort of visual motif. They return to the dollhouse again,
quite a bit,
and again. And I I feel that is actually a very clever thematic element. I think that they are using it to talk about what is going on in a very subtle way. I'm not going to say more than that because I don't want to spoil anything. But then there's also shots where she's outside in the snow and it's just her and snow and nothing, and it's like, you know, it's very artfully done. It's very well crafted cinematography.
Yeah, definitely. And that would lead me to my first good point about this film, if y'all allow me to take second string. The setting. They found a really great location for this story. For this story, they found a stellar location. That house, that lodge, stellar. They are so lucky that they had that space. And also just the surrounding environments around it. Like there are some exterior shots where someone is trekking through the blizzardy wilderness, and just all the interior shots of the house at night were honestly some of the creepiest parts of this for me personally. And so for me, I think the setting, they've really lucked out with this location. It's integral to this film, I feel like.
I mean, yeah, it's literally called The Lodge.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right,
that's an excellent point. Yeah,
you
get a bad lodge.
Yeah.
You got a bad move. We call it lodge. Yeah.
You gotta put your money where your mouth is if you're naming it that. Like,
well, and I guess also in that regard, then just to sort of make it less of an thing. The way that they use their setting too, like. Because getting the location is half the battle, and then recognizing how to use it is also important.
Yes, that's a very good point.
And they certainly came very prepared with this. Ben, you pointed out that some reviews had commented on its similarity to some of the previous writer-directors' works. I'd be interested to see that because I feel like this film already borrows very heavily, especially with the dollhouse shit. Like, Hereditary came out a year prior.
Yeah.
And is like super popular. And then like, I guess they were probably in production around the same time.
They were definitely in production by the time Hereditary came out.
Yeah. So like, I maybe that's just really unfortunate that like, I feel like Hereditary has had a little bit more longevity in the public eye than The Lodge has. So it's a shame that there was another movie that kind of, because I liked the dollhouse stuff in this, but it made me wonder if they had borrowed, and now I see that the timeline wouldn't have allowed for that necessarily, unless they radically changed this movie in like the last few months they were filming. I don't know. I got off track just to say that The Lodge is good. Surprise.
It's a good lodge.
Yeah.
It's a good lodge. They found a good lodge for The Lodge.
It's a good lodge. Fuck yeah. I think that's a very valid point.
I have no complaints to lodge about it.
Right.
Okay.
All
Just
right.
two middle fingers.
Officially we are canceling the podcast.
That's it.
One too many times.
That's a wrap.
It's a wrap.
All right. Good night, everybody.
All right, Matt, what you got?
Okay. I gotta say, the acting from the main trio. I mean, this is a cast of 4, basically, more or less. It is a very small group of people that you're spending this time with. And the 3 main people, the 2 kids and the stepmom, I think all 3 of them do a really good job of acting, especially in the beginning. I feel as if there is a lot of tension between them, and it feels very organic and very real that this woman is coming in after a personal tragedy that these, and is kind of like, trying to figure out her place, and like kind of just as uncomfortable and reluctant as the kids are to be in this space with them, because, why wouldn't you be,
Agreed.
And so I think that there's something to be said for that. I think that it is a very, I think it is very well acted in terms of the 3 main people. And a special shout out to the younger girl, because I find I've watched a lot of movies recently where I've watched a younger kid act, and I'm like, you're not there.
Right.
You're not
Right.
doing it. You are in a space saying lines. You're not acting. And she was, and she is good. And I just felt like the three of them brought slightly elevated performances, especially kind of up through the middle of the movie when it's a little more organic and less kind of fewer horror-y things are going on, as it were. So that's my first good. I think their performances are really, really good.
Nice. Yeah, that I cannot disagree with that. Solid performances, great chemistry all the way around for sure too.
All right, Ben, what's your second good?
The sound design.
Sure.
I will say this, and I'll be brief. A lot of horror films tend to use music ineffectively, or even just sounds ineffectively. To me, sometimes they also go for cheap scares with the shrieking violin or the piano bang, or and I think a horror film is at its best personally, and that this could be subjective and a matter of taste, when you strip back all of that and it's not as produced and you just get tones as opposed to just like, you know what I mean? Just more of a, or just more of a, just like ambient noises, just to set the mood, just to get the audience there. Because the scariest part about a horror film to me is that you can picture yourself being in that situation, right?
Sure, yeah.
You want to be in the house, you want to be in that lodge. You want to be where they are. Or not, of course, but like still, that's the kind of thing that you want to convey.
The thrill of you being there is
exactly, because it's a thrill ride. It's a fucking roller coaster, and you want to be. It's. I will say it's like a haunted house, pretty much. I mean, that's the feeling that you want, and sound does that so well if it's used effectively, especially in a horror film. And I think this does it to a T, something that I would prefer. And this is definitely my preference, and I like it a lot. It does it justice, and they do it effectively. So that's my second good.
Was there a particular standout moment that you remember the sound design really getting you?
A specific moment. I will say when she was walking in the snow, that was a couple of great moments. Definitely when she went down to the basement. There's a few other times too. The opening shot, the very opening shot. Just that it's almost nothing. You could hear a pin drop, but at the same time, there's a deeper tone underneath. And then something horrific happens, which we won't.
Don't want to spoil. Gotta go watch.
But yes, it's also just in the silence alone too, just allowing your movie to have some silence there without having to fill it with something contrived. You do a good job of that. That takes a lot of trust in what you're filming, and I like it. I enjoy it. Yeah,
hell yeah.
That's legit as hell.
I agree. 100%.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, Ian.
All right. So I was thinking about it, and I'm actually gonna say I'm going with the makeup in this, because very often in sort of modern, non-heightened pieces, the makeup can sometimes be like an afterthought or something, like just put a base on them, like make sure that they're not shiny, yada da da da. They definitely put a little bit of thought here in terms of like how made up everyone is, in watching people's states deteriorate and or change, and as they do so, like that's reflected in their costumes and their makeup, and that's of course just good world building and production design. But I think that they utilized it really well here, and again, without spoiling too much, there are some special effects. There's some special effects makeup used at points that I thought was rather effective, and I was like, ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Without being like, hostily or super over the top gore, but like it is just like an accurate reflection of what might happen to someone and their skin should they be in certain conditions. And I just remember when it happened, I have my own thoughts about the direction that the movie goes and how it does all this. But the makeup in that part in particular, I think really, really helps add to the horror of it all. And yeah, I don't think I ever give enough shout out or props to makeup work. So here seemed a good instance to do so. The Lodge gets their makeup really well in this.
Yeah.
Right on. Yeah, that's good makeup.
Because you learn. They do. I think a great example are between to like just highlight that a little bit more and go a little bit deeper. So I'm not being super vague. the mother at the start of the film, and then the stepmother, and like the way that they sort of differ in look. The mother is very well made and perfect and looks very sort of cheery and light, and then Grace, I believe, is our protagonist's name. Grace, who is the stepmother, when she arrives, she's not disheveled, but she's like a little plainer is the wrong word, but she is made up to look more...
She's less picture perfect.
There we go. That's exactly what I was looking for. Yes, she's less picturesque in the way that they designed her costume and her makeup, and I thought that was a great reflection of that.
Yeah.
Right on. Good point. Good points all the way around. We've got some good points here. It's a pretty decent film. Matt, what do you got? Your last point.
Okay. My final good. I think this movie does something very bold, which is... I'm trying to figure out how to talk about this without spoiling everything. Well, not everything, but specifically the beginning. They do something really bold, which a lot of films don't do, which is they spend time with a character and you kind of get to know that character a little bit. And then after a little bit, it's not about them anymore. And I think that is very effective and frequently underutilized.
The sort of protagonist fake out almost.
Yeah. I mean,
I dig that. Yeah.
I'm reminded of Psycho, where the first half of the movie you're following Vivien Leigh's character, and then after a certain point, if you haven't, just fucking watch Psycho, all right? After a certain point, it's not about her anymore because she dies. I'm sorry, the movie came out in the 60s. If you haven't seen it yet, it's your fault.
Yeah, I think that's a spoiler we can get away with.
Yeah.
Subscribe.
Yeah. So it's just one of those things where I think there is there's a certain power to it because you start to develop your audience's expectations when you spend so much time with a person, where you go, okay, this is going to be about this person. We are going to watch their journey. We are going to watch their growth, their change, their struggles. And then to suddenly shift that is a very bold move, I think. And
definitely, yeah.
I don't think it always works, but I think it's effective here. I think they did a good job with it in this particular instance.
I absolutely agree. I love that. I love that element in any storytelling, man. I want to write a story like that so bad. Just like follow the main character up until a point, just like even like a season long for like a show, and then immediately shift. Like I just think it's so fucking cool. It's very underutilized. That's a good point, Matt. Very good point.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I think part of why so many films don't do that is because if you look at it like a bank account for time or something, you only get so much time to make us care about someone.
Oh, absolutely.
And to effectively spend half your movie making us like doing all this work, like that storyteller did all this work to make us care and empathize and feel strongly about this person's struggle, to yank that out from under us and be like, and now care about these folks, that's a tall task. But as you pointed out, this is an instance where they do that very well.
It's tricky.
It's so tricky.
All right. So that's all the goods. Let's go on to the bads.
Who wants first?
Who wants to take it?
All right, I'll go first.
Yeah, okay.
I'll take it again. Let's see. Okay. Now I'm going to try my best without spoiling anything, of course. But and this one's a tricky one as well, but I think we're done with the trope of the woman going crazy, right? I think I also don't think it necessarily lends itself to this story in particular. I think honestly, the genders should have perhaps been swapped.
That would be interesting.
Because without getting into too much of the minutia, the story that this lends itself to is more of a male issue, I think. Not to say that people aren't persuaded one way or another when it comes to a cult. I don't think that's necessarily throwing something away, by the way. You kind of get that vibe within like 25% of the movie without spoiling too much. not to say that, women aren't exposed to that. That is something, get a charismatic leader. That happens a lot. It's easy, blah, blah, blah. But just even in the manner in which things happened, it's statistically more inclined for a man to be more abusive, yada, 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 yada. And physically able to get to that point as well. And also, it's a weird thing, too, to get into certain, it's like, certain mental illnesses potentially being physical and dangerous. I think we kind of get into this element that could be harmful for people who are actually going through it. I'll just say this. I'm not going to tell you who has it, but PTSD is displayed in this. And I think it's sometimes, especially in horror movies, mental illnesses don't necessarily always portray them in accuracy that I kind of want to see more of. And sometimes it can be slightly harmful. Not saying that this is egregious or anything, but I think we can do just a tad bit better.
I actually want to take it a step further. I think it is egregious. I think it's
okay. Cool. I can totally be.
I was about to say we all almost did the first same bad.
I know,
sure.
And this was this was the problem, is that we were all on the same page in this. Is that so?
Cool. I can definitely be on, not to be wishy-washy, but I could say it's egregious as well.
I think that this is like one of the worst tropes in horror specifically, but it's not just horror. You see it in other things as well. And it is the idea that having a psychiatric disability makes you a dangerous person.
Yep.
Statistically speaking, people who have psychiatric disabilities are far more likely to have violence perpetrated against them than they are to perpetrate violence against others. That is a statistical fact. And the fact of the matter is that the way in which people, quote unquote, go crazy in movies is not a thing. It's not a thing. And I was so frustrated by this because there's a certain turning point where you find something out and it's like, oh, it's too late. Like, oh, they're crazy now and there's no backing down from the crazy. And it's like, hey, do some fucking research. This is 2020. We have the internet. Read the DSM-5, motherfuckers. Not that it is a, like the end-all, be-all, the DSM-5. The DSM has its own problems because human neurology is very tricky and, neurochemistry. We're
constantly learning new things.
Well, and things, there's a lot of stuff that used to be in the DSM that it was probably, like being gay used to be in the DSM as like a disorder. Yeah, that's not fucking cool. However, what's even less cool is not doing any research because it's like, what illness do they have?
They got
PTSD, right? But it's like, and there's the magical meds that keep you from going from like a normal human into an insane fucking monster. No.
Yeah.
That's not a fucking thing.
An issue I have too. The lack of creativity there. It's just like, hey, there are ways to convey to an audience how damaging a mental illness is to that person and how it can be terrifying creatively and still be terrifying to an audience. Be like, this is what you have to go through on a daily basis. Anxiety, depression, things of that nature. Like there's something always over you. Just say like a specific demon or something that's always watching you, always weighing you down in a certain state. That's terrifying sometimes with people with depression because your life could be at danger at any time by yourself. You don't want to harm anyone else. This is it is a lack of creativity that is just so fucking frustrating.
Yeah.
And just I guess you're right. It's egregious. Come on. We're still doing this shit.
I come from a background of people who have engaged with people with psychiatric disabilities. My mother worked with them for a long time, and I can safely tell you that the thing that she has in the thing that the character has in the movie, not a thing, not real. That's not like a thing.
Sure, of course.
And it also just does such a terrible disservice because it shifts the narrative from something that is being done to them to then something that they are doing because, oh no, they've snapped.
They're crazy.
Yeah.
Right.
And I have no patience for that, and I have no respect for it, and I will not make space for it. I think it's egregious.
Right on. Absolutely. I agree.
And we will all be better storytellers when we can bury that in the fucking ground.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay. Yeah. That one stuck with me for sure. Especially someone who suffers with mental illness. Yeah.
That is something that all three of us were thinking. So
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
All right.
I mean, I'll take the number 2 then, if y'all don't mind.
Yeah, you take
Absolutely.
the 2.
Because that one's a big one, but I think this ties in a little bit. This film asks us to suspend a lot of disbelief. A lot of disbelief. And I have no problem doing that. I hate those pedantic ass film reviews that are like, time travel is depicted in Yerada is so stupid because of this. Like, at a certain point, like, that, I think that becomes like a little less valid, like in just like the nitpicky shit. You're just like cinema sins. Don't get me started.
Oh yeah, that's a whole
Anyone who follows me on social media knows my take on cinema sins and their trash attempt to generate content.
Shots fired. Blah blah.
Yep. Blah blah. Go ahead and at me, Cinema Sins. Yes, you and your like 100,000 followers that are all teenagers. Like, yeah, that's right. That is why Harley Quinn movie is stupid. Like, cameras don't do that. Yeah, go fuck yourself. This film, though, really does a lot of work to try to... That's the thing. I was going to say it does a lot of work to try to feel grounded. It tries to feel grounded. It doesn't do a lot of work to try to feel grounded, and that's part of why we have
pretends to be grounded.
There we go. That's a great way to put it. It pretends to be grounded, and so, like, none of that work is done to help us understand some of the more extreme circumstances that do come up in Act 3 of this film. There is one particular... for lack of a better term, I'm not gonna. Nope, no spoilies. There is an event that happens that would require a decent amount of technical know-how, I think. And maybe even like no small amount of equipment. And we're never like we're just not. Who cares? Doesn't matter how that happened. Like, and that's. Again, like stupid nitpicky things, but when you make that moment the like twist / crux of your film, like when you have one of those, for lack of a better term, plot holes at the center of one of like these major turning points in your story, I don't know, it seems kind of disrespectful to the audience. Like, listen, we're just trying to make this story work. Like, it seemed lazy as a storyteller. Like, we've got these pieces and we know where we want to end the story, so we are going to like, you know, like weave and dive and like contort our way through all of the hoops necessary to get to the point we want to get to, as opposed to being like, okay, I thought the story was going here, it no longer is. Like, that's what it feels like to me with this.
Yeah, it's a lot of hand waving.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%. Like, oh, and this happened. Okay. Any specific? Nope. It's all right. We just need to know that it's important that it happened.
Move on.
Okay. Yep. And like that again ties back into, I think, the portrayal of struggles with mental health in this film. We don't really learn too much about how this character's trauma has affected them, like, or where that trauma stems from, like what it was that gave them that trauma. It's just kind of like, and by the way, they have trauma, so be gentle. And it's like, no, like, I think it's that whole, they ask you to suspend a lot of disbelief because they're not willing to do solid world building.
All right.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
And it's a shame because, you know, again, it is spooky and it's there are moments that were genuinely thrilling. But at the end of the day, it did make me feel just a little cheated.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
What you got, Matt?
I mean, what you said was my biggest complaint about this movie. And because I feel like everything else, I feel like it invalidates so many other things that otherwise could be good, because it is a fundamental rot in the core of the tree of this movie that I can't get over. But since we're nitpicking, I'm not a huge fan of the dad. I mean, I don't think he does a
True.
bad job. He's just kind of fucking bland. He like works a job where you're like, what is your job? No, there's no like, he's like, his name is man. He has job. His eyes are there. Like there's no, he's so nondescript. And I also just, I also resent his character so much because I think that it is so like the whole thing, right? There's an inciting incident that happens 6 months prior to this movie. And then this movie is the new mom coming together with the dad and the kids. 6 months is a very short amount of time.
Yes.
For your children to be dealing with things, one would think. And maybe one would think that maybe dad should be a little bit less of a fucking dick in terms of trying to push things like a new mom. And I mean, his character, I don't think it was the actor's fault. I just think that his character is just
poorly written.
I mean, it's just a force. He's just he's just a thing that moves in a way to get us, as Ian said, to where we need to be at the end. And
why would you leave your fucking kids with this person who they don't even know? Like, in the middle of a snowstorm. I just and
it's like it doesn't make any fucking sense. It doesn't make any fucking sense. And
zero.
And I thought that was like, this is kind of like a hodgepodge of complaints wrapped into one.
It's all
like,
good.
It all centers around the dad. And
it's fine.
That's legit as fuck. Yeah.
I
agree.
Yeah.
I feel really bad for this man because he got the King Dwarf role in the Hobbit movies. That's who this is.
Oh, shit.
And so
he plays
I'm pretty
Thorin
sure
Oakenshield?
He's Thorin Oakenshield, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm pretty sure that when he got that role in The Hobbit, he's like, bro, this is it. Like, my career is fucking set. I am fucking Thorin Oakenshield in The Hobbit, in Peter Jackson's The Hobbit. And then they started filming, and he was like, fuck.
The thing is, I actually think he did a good job as Thorin. I feel like he actually brought his shit to the table.
Yeah.
The problem is all the other elements.
Everything else.
Well, and it's, absolutely. Like, I think that's why I think he realized just that The Hobbit wasn't going to be the career maker he had
hoped
I think any reasonable person would think it would be.
Yeah, because I mean, look at what The Lord of the Rings did for everyone who touched it. Like,
right.
You know?
So I think I just feel really bad for this guy because I think that he's still sort of doing semi-damage control after that. And so he's that poor man. This was another chance for him, a good old indie horror film, and
yeah.
All right,
Ben, what is your second bad?
All right, so my second bad is, it's going to sound like I'm contradicting my first good, but I'm not, and hear me out. I don't think the movie is that scary. I know I said it does a great job of establishing the environments, which it does. It does give you an uneasy feeling, and maybe that's what the director and the writers were going for, as opposed to like a horror film in general or a thriller. But I felt like that they were trying to play in, oh shit, look at this, like you should be frightened here, and I never got that sense of pure dread and hopelessness. Not saying that the twists and turns and some of the uneasy feelings and that I did feel and experience aren't valid. They are, but I wish they kicked it up just a little bit more to truly make me walk away and be like, oh my God, like have to turn on my lights at night. You know what I mean? That's the type of shit I love when I watch a horror film, just being like, oh man, I would have to sleep with one eye open at night, and I never quite felt that.
I got you, because if they do a good job of creating that sort of that atmosphere, that dread that you're looking for, that can stay with you after a movie if it's done well. And you were so right, because in the moment I remember thinking like, ooh yeah, this is nice and atmospheric, but it doesn't linger, it doesn't stay with me.
Nope.
Yeah, and I do think that is because it's like, it's good to have atmosphere, like it's good to build atmosphere, and I love it when horror movies don't try to do the cheap jump scares, because jump scares are bullshit, but you gotta like go somewhere with it. You have to keep building it, and they
Right.
don't really build it up anywhere. It just kind of like
Is and it exists.
yeah, and then it's like done, and you're like, all right, yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
The ending just
Yeah.
left me wanting more, and it hits a peak, and it just kind of just coasts on that peak, and like
Yeah.
you guys said, it never builds off of that. It plateaus, and you're
Yeah.
like, give me something else. Can I get another spike in this excitement? And then it ends, and it's a decent twist ending,
Mm-hmm.
but I never walk away with like fuck, like geez, like fuck me, like this is crazy, no. So
Yeah.
that's my second bad for sure.
100%. I totally agree with that.
Mhm.
Yeah, Hundo P.
All right, who's next, y'all?
Ian, what you
All
got?
right, it's me. I'm up. I gotta think of. Give me one sec.
No.
Oh God. Oh no, it's all over.
Yeah, take your time, baby.
It's tough, man, because I didn't like her I didn't like how they handled Grace's exposition. Her character in general, like everything we learn about Grace's backstory and everything that this film builds on to its eventual emotional climax really relies on that backstory. It's all just sort of said at us. And I guess we do get like one little like home video record footage, but like I guess I was frustrated that we as the audience never go there. Like we never get to go to the past life Grace had that made her quote unquote the way she is or what she is dealing with in this film. We never go there. We see other characters read a file and watch a video on there, and that's all we get. And then the film like relies on that like 3-ish, 5-ish minute block of exposition to draw out its dread and its and Grace's struggle to like. And if you're gonna rely and use that as the like crux for one of your protagonist's stories, then I think you need to do a little bit more than just give us that like 3 to 5 minute block and have that just.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it didn't carry the movie for me. Like there was one scene in particular where Grace is out in the wilderness. She's trekking through the snow, and she comes upon a moment where I was like, oh, now we get to go back there. Now we get to exist with her in this past. And no, we don't.
I know
It's
exactly what moment you're talking about, and
I know you do. I'm trying not to spoil it.
I know.
Yeah.
I was right there with you, and I was so frustrated because it was like, oh, never mind. Okay.
Yeah, because that was a great opportunity.
I almost
It was.
wish if they weren't going to go all the way there to just leave it out and just make it even more ambiguous.
Yeah. Well, and this is the thing, right, is that they're kind of doing this like shorthand where they're like, okay, so I don't think it's a spoiler to say that she was part of like a Christian suicide cult. You find that out with
That's true. It's in the trailer even.
It's in the
Okay.
and it's within the first like 10 minutes. It's part of her character exposition. So anyway, she's the daughter of this like suicide cult leader, and she's the sole survivor who like filmed everything. And so that has somehow led to her having some sort of unknown psychiatric disability that is
treated with pills that we don't really know much about. They're just
that are
the
called
pills
and cause some amount of like, yeah, I mean, it's just like, the thing is that there are films that have explored PTSD wonderfully. There are films that really, really get into the like torment that PTSD does to like for you. The Deer Hunter.
Yeah, Robert De Niro, Christopher Walken. Yeah.
So it's basically like about a man who is a prisoner of war in Vietnam and then like comes home and has to live with the fact that like amongst other things he was forced to like play Russian roulette and like all this other really fucked up stuff. And there are so many instances where you can use, like, if you're going to talk about, if you're going to talk about PTSD, like, have some compassion, but also, give us more. We never get to see, like, her perspective, really. Like, I mean, PTSD can cause, like, night terrors and hallucinations, like panic attacks. You don't ever really see any of that. But it's also like the to your point, Ian, is that they just kind of go, she was part of a cult. That's why she liked this. And you're like, okay, work a little more, please. Like, do a little bit more.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a lot to ask that if you're going to have that be the crux of your character, that, like, as you said, we do a little bit of work with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, because she's technically the kind of the main character, but we never really get into her space, you know? We kind of do, but it's more like this sort of dispassionate observer where we're looking at her, like, kind of falling to pieces. Like, I wanted to trust what was happening less, you know? Like,
yes.
And that's the thing is, like, if you're doing something where someone is, like, off their meds and, like, you know, like, getting crazy, fuck with it. Like, look, it's bad to do this, but if you're gonna do it, like, fucking go for it. Don't half-ass your ass, you know? Like, whole ass it. If it's, you know, it's a bad decision, but, like, also don't fucking wishy-washy it out. Like, you know, play with the audience's expectations. And they sort of do, but it's cheap. And
it's cheap, and they don't. Yeah, it's been done way better before.
100% agree.
Absolutely,
100% agree. All right, Matt, what's your second and last bad?
So my last bad is actually, and Ian, you touched on this earlier, that some critics had said. So the filmmakers prior to this made Goodnight Mommy, which is a horror film about a couple of kids who are alone in a house with their mom who comes home from some surgery and has her face bandaged. And they become convinced that the mom isn't their mom. And there are a ton of parallels between Goodnight Mommy and The Lodge. There are so many. That, you know, it's like, hey, there's like a pair of kids alone with a woman in a space, and like
it's isolated. And,
and I think that there is a lack of creative push on the part of the filmmakers where they did not challenge themselves. They came up with Goodnight Mommy is also scarier. And actually has a lot of other thematic elements that I won't get into for spoilers, but like there's a ton of similarities between these two. And it's like, dude, you made these movies back to back. Try something new, like, you know, don't just find a pattern and like just do that one thing over and over again. That's how we wind up with like, you know,
Michael Bay.
Saw fucking 32. Saw Electric Boogaloo. Like, fuck that, you know? Like, I'm not you gotta push yourself. You gotta try things. And I feel like this was a safe movie, and I feel like it shows, you know?
Yeah.
Like they didn't take risks, they didn't try anything, and it just wound up being really disappointing, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's my final bad.
All right.
I mean,
There's a good bads, good goods. All right, so let's get into the reboots portion of the episode. Reboot The Lodge. Ian, do you want to take it? I don't know.
I think what I would do differently with this is I have no beef with how this movie starts out. You know, I got no beef with that. I kind of actually like the opening a little bit. But then I would quickly pivot and change the direction wherein I think I would follow Grace a lot more before she meets the family. Like and I wouldn't have the father be so just like fucking nebulous in this movie. Like he's not really bad, he's not really good, he's just like dad, you know. He makes bad decisions on both ends, or decisions on both ends of the spectrum. So I think I would have him be a little bit more antagonistic, maybe even in this story. I would have the story much more heavily follow Grace and her time. Like I would intersperse her time with the Lodge with her backstory 10,000% and start to try to like bleed those two realities together in a really unsettling way. And then I don't dislike the twist of this movie, but boy howdy, I do dislike how they sort of executed a few ways and expect us to just go along with it. So I would definitely rework that, no spoilies. And then at the end, I wouldn't necessarily have like, you know, the whole mental snap, no going back type deal. I don't know how I would deal with that personally. But I think the ending of this needs a major rework too. So that's sort of what my initial approach would be. You know, blend the moments of isolation in the Lodge with her actual backstory, so we're seeing it in real time and not trusting our realities. and maybe like have the father actually like do something as opposed to just being the setup for the film and then an eventual like just sort of emotional prop, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Martin, I think that's good. I'll take number 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go for it.
So if I were going to be, if I were going to remake this, I would lean way more heavily like into the thematic elements that are in the promise of the premise, right? So you have a person who was the daughter of a suicide cult leader. And and there are kind of casual, like there are allusions to purgatory and like to, you know, things like that throughout this movie. I would up that 1,000,000,000%. I would actually have it be something where it is more supernatural, you know, and have it be this question of like faith, and where does faith lie when you are when your spiritual education is so toxic, you know, like can faith save you, or does it need to be entirely abandoned? And when, you know, it's like one of those things where it's like, if say a cult were to do all of these things wherein they were like they, you know, like have more prophecies, and then have those some of the prophecies start to come true, and then be like, what is real, what is not? And you can have that same twist at the end that there is, although you gotta work it better, as Ian
you
said.
Definitely have to earn it. Yeah.
But I feel like they just need to up it way more. If you're gonna have that sort of plant at the beginning, you gotta like, it's fertile ground. Till it. Plant some shit.
And that's an excellent point. Like, I don't want us to go backwards, but that is something that really I thought was a missed opportunity, is that the cult is framed as objectively wrong.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like there is like absolutely no sense to it whatsoever. It is just crazy. Whereas, like, as you said, it's fertile ground. You're in a horror movie. Like,
you know, it's
make
really
us unsettled by guessing, like, what if they're right? I don't know, you know?
Yeah. What's really funny is that I'm pretty sure that this suicide cult is like heavily inspired. It totally fucking is. It's very heavily inspired by Heaven's Gate.
Yep.
Which was a real suicide cult that basically believed that they were like a UFO cult, and they believed that when they, you know, it was like, I think it was like 88 something people killed themselves as a part of this cult, because they believed that they were transcending their bodies. And Heaven's Gate is fucking nuts, because they like all went to Disney World or something before they like killed themselves. It was like a happy thing, because they all genuinely fucking believed that they were going to transcend. And like all of them did it fully voluntarily. There were plenty of opportunities for everyone to leave. And like, it's so super fucked up to us because we are hyper westernized. But like, no one was there against their will, you know? And we can talk about like cult indoctrination and the way that like cults fuck with your mind, and how cults attract people who are desperate to find some sort of meaning and then take advantage of them frequently. You know, which is why more often than not, cults tend to lead toward the like Charles Manson side of things, as opposed to the like, you know, happy, loving, free side of things. And leaders of cults frequently abuse their power. You know, like normal, sane, healthy people don't start cults. Like normal, sane, healthy people just don't.
They start a flower shop.
Exactly. Cult leaders are people who want power over others frequently. And which is why so often in cults, there's this weird sort of power dynamic, usually involving sex, wherein like the cult leader like is abusing people, but framing it in this way of like, this is all part of this. And it's because, you know, they're fucking evil. And it's like, there's so much ground to explore and to actually do something with and reckon with dynamics and power and faith. And like, this movie didn't do any of it. And that's what I want in my remake, is all of that.
That's
tasty. All right.
I like it. I like it a lot. All right. Time for my remake reboot of The Lodge. I'm going to go the opposite route of you guys here. I will say this. I will retain...
It's a romantic comedy.
No, It will still be a horror for sure. Romantic.
Kevin, when are you coming back to the lodge? The kids are driving me crazy.
It's a ski lodge, and they have to. The guy has to
right.
win the race. Sorry.
Actually, I want it to be a multicam sitcom on CBS, right after The Big Bang Theory.
Kids, what did you do with all the food?
Okay, yeah. I will keep the supernatural elements. I would completely do away with the cult stuff. No one does it well, and it kind of muddles everything else. It's like two different stories taking place here that never quite connect. The cohesion is never there. I see where they're trying to go with it in theme and everything, but it just doesn't quite hit. First of all, let's start off the movie on the car ride to the lodge. I thought about this, I said on it, as shocking as the beginning is, I don't know if it is needed in that order. So mess with the order a little bit. Just a ride of them talking and understanding their characters and their dynamic in the car ride.
And then you're wondering what's going on because there's that tension there.
So
Yes, Ben, yes.
Ben, you're on to something. You're on to something.
And yeah, you're wondering what's going on. You're wondering where they're going, where they're heading, what's happening. Why is this dynamic weird? You do pieces of flashbacks because, again, I love this when artists and directors do this and storytellers do this. When you do flashbacks in pieces and fragments of these flashbacks, because that's how memories work, right? We don't always get a clear, concise memory. A flashback doesn't happen like it does in real time in our brains. It's always fragmented. That's how memories work. Give that to us in those moments of, oh, this is what they're going through, so they can build up that mystery, and also we can get a sense of, oh, they're grieving. So make this about grief and how they deal with it wholeheartedly about that. And then you can add a supernatural element or even a scientific element. Say that they're near some type of radioactive plant, as silly as that is, or something in the air or the water, I like that. Something in the water at the lodge is just make up some cockamamie shit that you don't have to get too detailed into. You don't have to be bogged down with the details, right? Oh, something's in the water, or just allude to it. Never quite mention it, but just know that it's something. Maybe a still camera on a dripping faucet, right? That adds the element of drip, because that can be annoying and it can get under your skin, just that droop, droop, droop. As right after they grab a cup of water right out of the faucet. Maybe even have a mention of maybe the stepmom or stepfather in this. I don't think the sexes really matter in this. Really is bougie or something. And that's kind of the dynamic in the car is I only drink filtered water. What am I going to do? And they have to start drinking out of the faucet. They get stuck there. We have a legitimate reason for the father. Also, I want the father to grieve with the kids. I don't think we ever saw a good cry, a good moment between the father and those kids was needed so much because he just feels like a random ass nigga, and that bothers me.
True.
Dude was this random dude. He could have been anyone. Honestly, if you didn't tell me that was their father, I would have been like, okay, I guess this might be.
He could have been a stepfather,
right?
For the amount of,
stepfather or anything.
A new stepfather for the amount of emotional connection that
exactly
the film gave us.
Give us these emotions. A good horror story. Now I'll get off this point because I could sit up here all day and try to dissect it. I love horror. I absolutely one of my favorite genres, but. Take, for instance, A Quiet Place and how that family dynamic really fucking works. It start off with it being a family movie first, then build upon that. It seemed like they had really great, scary ideas. And they were like, ooh, wouldn't it be cool if she was a part of a cult? Ooh, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, also, we'll have this family and they'll come here. No, start off with establishing those relationships at the fucking beginning and then expound upon that. And then that works. And then that's my reboot. I could go in more details, but I get really close. I'm flying close to the sun by just spoiling it, but that's as general as I can make it.
That's solid, man. I mean, whew.
Yeah.
At least we all brought an ounce of creativity and originality to this.
Right.
So kudos to us for trying,
Did what we could.
Right.
We sure did.
Let's get to our rating system. Whoever just jumps at it can go. I'm not privy to an order.
I think for me, I think this movie is something for the background. It's not egregious. It's a little boring, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not, yeah, I just, it's something that you could put on if you kind of want an ambience of spoopiness while you're doing something. You're really not going to like miss much if you're not paying attention. So for me, it's just something for the background.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's a good one. I will go next. If that's okay with you, E.
Absolutely.
Okay. Also, I want to make
an
amendment to my reboot. I actually will have this take place in Flint, Michigan. It will be a mostly black family. And that will, again, in the car ride there, you'll hear news segments on the radio about the water and maybe their location, but that doesn't, you'll just kind of hear it in the background.
So like just put it maybe in like northern Michigan.
Absolutely.
Maybe even in like the UP or something like that.
Yes, absolutely. Then, so it draws attention to that, how the water is still not clean
like
and what
from
that,
Flint. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Sick.
So it could be a story about neglect and stuff too.
There you go.
Right.
That's
Hey, Blumhouse.
Right.
Blumhouse.
Right.
You listening? Hey.
Right.
Excuse me.
Right, absolutely. Okay, so yeah, with that being said, back on track, something in the background is so close to being on the list, but, you know, with everything that we talked about, with how disappointing and how, you know, it's a disappointment because, you know, there's obviously competent filmmakers there and you expect better, and it just doesn't quite reach that finish line. So yeah, it's definitely something in the background. It's definitely worth watching, but you don't really have to think too much about it, to be completely honest. They want it to be smarter than it is, and it does have moments of brilliance, but it's not that deep. So something.
Well, yeah, because in order to be deep, you have to say something. You have to take a risk, and they don't take a risk. They take no
Absolutely.
risks. So. All righty, what's your rating?
All right. So this one teeters very carefully to me a little bit on the opposite spectrum. It gets closer to the I would rather range. That being said, I don't think it's nearly bad enough. Like, I'm tempted to put it there just because it is so bland.
Yeah.
By the end of it, that like it set like the marketing and the initial few minutes like set it up to be something really grand, and then it just ends up being very vanilla. So like maybe that's why I'm so frustrated with it. Yeah, I think I need to be fair and say that it is something for the background, because it would feel unjust to say that I would rather eat toenail trimmings than watch this again. But I'm not too far off from saying that, so keep that in mind, dear listener.
Right.
It is something for the background, but like, yeah, all competence aside, it is really frustrating that a story with such cool potential was wasted in such a flippant manner. So something for the background, but oh boy, it's tiptoeing. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. Well, all right, there you have it. That's our Stream Theory episode of The Lodge. We got some more spooky movies that we're going to review later on in this month, and we got some specials as well coming up. We're going to iron out the details with that, so stay tuned with that. What is our next movie, gentlemen?
Our next movie is A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. This movie came out in 2014. It is an Iranian-American vampire horror film that was widely acclaimed. It is on Shudder, and actually for the month of October, you can get a free 30-day subscription to Shudder.
So free advertising.
If y'all wanna hop on that and watch some spoops, this is the month for it. 30 days free. I think there's a code, but if you Google it, you can find it. Get on there.
It's something like really Scary 5 or something.
Yeah.
It's Scary 5, and I gotta say,
Scary 30.
Scary 30. Thank you. I will say this. I put off getting Shudder. We got it recently for the podcast. Their selection's not half bad.
It's really good. If you like horror even a little bit, I jump on this. Especially if you're getting a free month. You know?
We got to try to get them to sponsor us so we can advertise the shit out of Shudder. Come on, Shudder.
Yeah.
Come on,
Shudder.
Where you at?
Come on, Shudder.
We're ready. We're single and we're ready to mingle, Shudder.
Hey.
Come on, Big Shud. Come on.
I'm sending you eyes from across the bar. What's that? Who bought Shudder a shot? It's me. It's on me, baby. That's that good shit. I didn't get you that well. What you talking about? That's that top shelf.
Hell yeah. Okay. All right. So let's close her on now. Ian, tell the people who you are, how to get in contact with you, and
Friends.
What is your favorite spooky mythological creature?
Hell yes. Hell yes. Okay. Friends, dear listeners, my name is Ian Gabriel Gonzalez Muentener. You can find me on Facebook as Ian Muentener, if you care to try to spell that. You can find me on Instagram as SockNinja888, or if you want to see what content Ian enjoys consuming when he's drunk at 2 a.m., you can follow me on Twitter as Sir Yikes-a-Lot at BabyGotKnack. My favorite spooky mythological creature. This is fantastic because I'm going to pull up the name of it real quick, but there is a Japanese cryptid that is pretty fucking cool, wherein like it is a spider that has the shape of it has an appendage that is the shape of like the torso of a woman, and they would lure unsuspecting men in, and then the spider would eat them, and it was pretty rad. It's a Jorogumo, I think. I'm probably mispronouncing that, so I'm sorry if we have any Japanese speakers on here. But yeah, they're a spider creature that could shapeshift into the form of a woman and would lure people away and then consume them as a spider does. And that's just creepy as hell. Japanese cryptids, y'all, are actually pretty fucking rad.
I think they're called yokai, a lot of them.
Yes, yeah.
And there is actually a book called The Book of Yokai that is fucking wild. There's so many crazy ass things. Like,
it's amazing.
There's one that's an umbrella. There's one that asks you what color toilet paper you want, and if you say red, it offers you like red or blue, and if you say red, it like stabs you to death, and if you say blue, it like strangles you.
Jeez.
So basically, you just have to be like a nasty boy and be like, I don't wipe, and then just like run. Like,
I mean, that's legit though. Now I know if like. Because that's funny. That's like Matrix style, like red or blue pill. Do you want the red toilet paper or the blue toilet paper?
Red or blue wipe.
Well, joke's on you, Mr. Monster.
I only use
I'm a
bidets.
filthy human being.
I like to be squalid, thank you.
At that point, does like the killer toilet paper just go like, oh man, yeah, I don't fuck with that.
Yeah,
That's
it's like, dude, you are way more messed up than I am. You
just-
do you, man.
It just
I'm out.
implodes upon itself. It's just like,
Yeah.
collapses.
So, dear listener, you might recall that we were in the middle of plugs. So,
Right. Where is this going?
Ben, who are
Right.
you?
Shitter, that's where.
Right.
Oh, man.
Who are you? Where can people find you? And who is your favorite slasher villain?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a very good one because I'm not a huge slasher fan, so that pushes.
It doesn't even have to be a franchise. Like, you know, like I think you can do like sort of one-off stories that have a murderer in it. Like, I would definitely think I'd say that counts.
Okay, so my name is Ben Jenkins. You can find me on Facebook at Benjamin Timothy Jenkins. You can find me on Twitter at BTJenkins91. You can find me on Instagram at Benvolio91. And if you want to look at any of my acting gallery portfolio, you can go to my website at benjamintimothyjenkins.com. Yeah, and my favorite horror slasher / villain would probably be, it's a tie between, and these aren't necessarily great movies. This one is a great movie, I think. Candyman.
Hell yeah.
And this one is not a great movie, Jeepers Creepers. I do like the Jeeper Creeper fucking thing that it is, whatever it is. I don't even know what it is.
It's conceptually designed really well.
It's
Yeah.
like
Is it a demon
It's like a
or-
demon, right? That's the whole
Right.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it is like a demon, but
Which I think they actually stole from it, because doesn't it only feast like every 27 years?
Yeah. It
yeah,
does.
something like that. Yeah,
Which is like
I'm with you,
pound
bro.
for pound the amount of time that it slumbers. Okay,
Yeah.
I
Right,
see
yeah.
you, Jeepers.
Like, hold up,
You ain't
everybody.
slick.
I will say also, I had a problem with Jeepers Creepers in that I was so down for it until they show their hand too early. You see them way too early, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, they do. It's a fun, bad
But it's
horror
very
film, though.
fun.
It's
Yeah,
very
it is.
fun.
It's very
I
fun.
fuck with it because as a kid, it fucking freaked me out. I remember that distinctly. I would go with more of the classics like Freddy or Jay, but they just kind of like, I don't know. I've seen too much of them at this point, but those two always stand out for me
Hell
and
yeah.
are always a good time. All
Love
right.
it.
All right. So, Matt, tell the people who you are, how to get in contact with you, and what is your favorite Monster Mash? Just how
How do you monster mash?
How do you? No, I'm fucking with you. Because no one knows how to monster mash. They never give you explicit instructions.
Yeah, it's not like the hokey pokey, you know?
Right. Ian, you want to give Matt one? Because I'm having trouble.
Yeah. Matt, which of the creatures from The Thing is your favorite? Like which in the original? We're talking Carpenter 82 or 83, whenever it was. Thing, not the remake. What's your favorite creature to come out of that?
Oh man, that is like a question designed specifically for me.
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. All right, everybody. My name is Matt Frost. You can find me on Facebook as Matt Frost. You can find me on Twitter at mfrostcreative. My email address is mfrostcreative@gmail.com. And if you want to see some of the stuff I do, you can check out my website at mattfrost.media. I'm also on Instagram as Spider and Bee, like the tattoos on my arms. And man, they're all so good. But I gotta say, the one moment of The Thing that got me the most was, I wish I could remember his name. It's when they're doing CPR on him, and they have the paddle, not CPR,
defibrillator paddles.
The defibrillator paddles, and they go to like jolt him, and his chest just opens up and bites off the dude's hands. Because that was genuinely fucking surprising to me, and I was like so about it. Man, that movie is so fucking excellent.
It's stellar.
I don't hate the remake. It's not good.
It's not bad.
No, it's not.
I think it's serviceable.
The problem is that you're comparing it to, I would argue, the best horror movie ever made. And so like it's big,
a high bar,
fucking shoes to fill.
It was like the uphill battle that Dr. Sleep had. You know, you come in and like you can tell a solid, well-rounded story, but when you are attached to one of the most iconic pieces of your genre, like you gotta come uber correct. Otherwise, you know, like the purists are gonna lambast you and the rest of the audience isn't gonna necessarily defend you. I agree, Ben, that the remake was not super bad. Like I remember watching it as a youngin' and being like, oh wow. But then you watch that next to the John Carpenter version, it's like the difference
for me is that the thing in the John Carpenter movie is smart.
Yes.
It's an ambush predator. It waits. It picks its time. And it is defeated essentially through like this brute force outsmarting where basically they're like, all right, like we're gonna kill ourselves to kill you. Like and that kind of like that's what it takes. Whereas the one in the new one felt a little bit more of like kind of a typical monster, like a little less intelligent. Like it didn't quite feel like it was preying upon people in the same way.
Absolutely.
But it's still a good movie.
Yeah.
It's just John Carpenter's The Thing is like a perfect movie in my eyes. I would change
it. It's really.
I adore it in every way.
All right. Well, with that being said, y'all, we look forward to seeing you next week with our new stream theory. Make sure you also tune in to, the Too Many Flicks podcast. And we know that things are pretty hectic right now. People are catching COVID left and right in DC. It's crazy. But it is hilarious. I don't give a fuck. It's funny as shit because they completely denied it up until this point. Now they can't because they actually have it. It's hilarious.
God, karma is so sweet sometimes.
Shit. Oh, my sides hurt. But that being said, make sure you vote. Make sure you learn how to vote by mail. Read the instructions. Try to get your signature when you sign the back of that fucking envelope as close as you possibly can to your original signature, which is fucking absurd, and it is so much voter suppression. But try to get it done. Put it in early. If you do go to a polling place or an actual place, the tangible place, please make sure you put on a mask and stand 6 feet apart. Practice social distancing. Don't go anywhere unless you absolutely have to because this virus is still out there and it's flu season. So make sure you take care of your neighbors and take care of yourself and take care of your family.
Get
and
a flu
be
shot.
Smart.
Get a flu shot.
Get
this
a flu
season,
shot.
More than anything, it is crucial. They say that the month of October is the most important time to get a flu shot. Go get one.
Yep, I got mine. Go get yours. It's free. In most places, it's free. So please go get a flu shot. And if you feel sick, stay the fuck home. Don't go anywhere else in quarantine for 14 days. Most employers will understand that. Yeah, just please, especially if you live in a red state and you're listening to me now, it may seem all dandy and cool because your governor may not give a fuck, Florida. But please, for the love of God, be smart and put on a fucking mask. That's the least you can do for not just yourself, but your neighbors. And we know all that information is crazy. You're like, I thought it was a movie podcast. Why are you doing all this? Because it's important for you to understand. We know that it's stressful and it's a time of like, you know, getting your shit together because things may go downhill from here. We don't know where the future holds, but we know at this moment that we try our best to watch all these films for you. So you don't have to always come home and watch a film. If you want to sit down and drink some brandy and just sit and put on some jazz or whatever's soothing for you, maybe it's some death hardcore metal and you're fucking chugging a fucking PBR. Whatever you got to do to relax, that's fine. But after that, you can turn on this podcast, flip it on, listen to us talk about some goddamn movies because we're too many flicks and we watch all the flicks.
So that you don't have to. Hey friends, thank you so much for tuning in again to another installment of Stream Theory. We really hope you are enjoying these. We really love making them for you. We know that we have changed up the segments and structure of the episodes a little bit. We would be so curious to hear your feedback. Also, maybe we haven't covered something that we should cover, or we just haven't talked about something, or you disagree with some of our opinions in these stream theories. Whatever the case, however you want to reach out and interact with us, you can do so on our social media pages. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram as Too Many Flicks with the number 2 at the beginning and an X at the end. You can also find us at our Gmail account, which is toomanyflicks.chicago@gmail.com. We are also working on revamping the Patreon, getting a bunch of cool, new, fun ideas and merch and rewards up there for the people who do help us out over there. A huge shout out to you all. You're fantastic, especially Natalie Cole, who has been there since nearly day one. All of you mean the world to us, and thank you for your support there. But we recognize that these are crazy times, so not everyone can support financially. Doing something like commenting or liking or subscribing on whatever platform you're tuning in on means its weight in gold to small podcasts like us. And finally, we know that it is an absolute madhouse out there, and there are so many more important things that require your attention at this time. We just hope that we can provide you with a little reprieve, a little solace from the madness that has become our world, because it certainly functions as that for us, and we're happy to share that. We just want to finish by saying it's crazy out there. We understand. Please wear your masks. Please wash your hands. Black Lives Matter. And stay safe. We love you.